Present yourself.
Agawadi, Bun Gad, Bun Yasha'Allah.
Agawadi, Bun Gad, Bun Yasha'Allah.
Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua Barakatham.
Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua Barakatham.
La Yasha'Allah.
That I say Amijim, which means to stand. Wakanya Hakwadam, which means turn to face the east. We're going to say the Lord's Prayer first in Hebrew. Repeat after me. Abanaw. Shabbat Shemayim.
Shabbat Shemayim.
Hadash.
Hadash.
Hayat.
Hayat.
Shemka.
Yahweh.
Malak with God.
Malak with God.
Taba'ah. Matazaka. Hayat. I.S.U.P.K.
Baratiza. Kawak. Hayat.
Bashemayim. The thunder now.
Lakam.
Cow.
Yawam.
Wasalaki now.
Kabawathi now.
Kasalaki now.
Kabawathi now.
Wala'ah.
Kabi
Ayi now.
Messiah one.
A ball. I was shine now.
Mayan.
Right.
Kaya.
Look
up. Hamalakwa. Waha'al.
Wa'alayamin.
Wa'alayamin. Aman. And in the English, our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done. In earth. As it is in heaven. Give us this day. Our daily bread. And forgive us our debts. As we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation. But deliver from evil. For thine is the kingdom. And the power. And the glory. Forever. So be.
We'll say, cut the power of Yahweh.
Ba'Shem. Yahushua. And in the English, Yahweh. In the name of Yahushua. Please give us the power. The power to heal. All manner of sickness. And all manner of disease. The power to cleanse the leper. The power to raise the dead. The power against unclean spirits. To cast them out. In the name of Yahushua. Thank you. So be.
We'll say, bless Israel. Yahweh.
Ba'Shem. Yahushua. Barakla now. YAHANNA. Wahabayah. Sapari. Barak. Magun. Hagun. Ba'Shem Yahushua. And in the English, Yahweh. In the name of Yahushua. Bless us. And Israel. And the school. Bless. Heal. Shield. Protect. Our loved ones. In the name of Yahushua. Thank you. So be.
We'll say Psalms 121.
Asha. Ayanya. Ahahari. Ma'ayan. Yaba'ah. Aizari. Ma'an. Yahweh. I.S.U.P.K. Shemayim. Baratiza. Ayathan. Namawat. Regalka. Ayanawam. Shamarka. Hanat. Yanawam. Wala'ah. Yahusha. Shalom. Yasha'Allah. Yahweh. Shamarka. Yahweh. Tazalka. Aliyah. Yamika. Yawamam. Hashamash. Na'ah. Yakaka. Wayarak. Balayala. Yahweh. Yashamarka. Makawrak. Yashamar. Athnapashka. Yahweh. Yashama.
Taza'atka.
Wahuwa'atka. Ma'aika.
Wa'ay'awalam.
Ma'ay'awalam.
Wa'aman.
Wa'aman. And in the English, I will lift up mine eyes into the hills.
I will lift up my eyes to the hills.
From whence cometh my help?
From whence cometh my help?
My help cometh from Yahweh.
My help cometh from Yahweh.
Which made heaven and earth.
Which made heaven and earth.
He will not suffer thy foot to be moved.
He will not suffer thy foot to be moved.
He that keepeth thee.
He that keepeth thee
Will not slumber.
will not slumber.
Behold,
Behold,
he that keepeth Israel.
he that keepeth Israel
Shall neither slumber nor sleep.
shall neither slumber nor sleep.
Yahweh is thy keeper.
Yahweh is thy keeper.
Yahweh is thy shade upon thy right hand.
Yahweh is thy shade upon thy right hand.
The sun shall not smite thee by day,
The sun shall not smite thee by day,
nor the moon by night.
nor the moon by night.
Yahweh shall preserve thee
Yahweh shall preserve thee
from all evil.
from all evil.
He shall preserve thy soul.
He shall preserve thy soul.
Yahweh shall preserve thy going out
Yahweh shall preserve thy going out
and thy coming in.
and thy coming in.
From this time forth
From this time forth
and even forevermore.
and even forevermore.
So be it.
So be it.
We'll see Psalms 83. Alahayim.
Alahayim.
Al-Damayalaka.
Al-Damayalaka.
Al-Thakarash.
Al-Thakarash.
Al-Thashakwat.
Wa'al-Thashakwat. Al.
Kayahanna.
Kayahanna.
Al-Yabika.
Al-Yabika.
Yahamayawan.
Yahamayawan.
Wamashanayaka.
Wamashanayaka.
Nasha'awa.
Nasha'aw.
Ra'ash.
Ra'ash.
Al-Imaka.
Al-Imaka.
Ya'ariyamwa.
Ya'ariyamwa.
Sawat.
Sawat.
Wayataya Itazawa.
Wayataya Itazawa.
Al-Tazabawanika.
Al-Tazabawanika.
Amarwa.
Amarwa.
Lakawa.
Lakawa.
Wanakakida.
Wanakakida.
Magawya.
Magalia.
Wala'ah.
Wala'ah.
Yazakar.
Yazakar.
Shem Yasha'al.
Shem Yasha'al.
Iwad.
Iwad.
Kaya.
Kaya.
Noah Itazawa.
Now Itazawa.
La.
La.
Yakadwa.
Nakadwa.
Alika.
Alika.
Varya.
Varya.
Yakarathwa.
Yakarathwa.
Ahalia.
Ahalia.
Anawam.
Anawam.
Waya Shema'alia.
Wayashiya'alia.
Mawa'aba.
Mawa'aba.
Wahagarian.
Wahagarian.
Gabal.
Gabal.
Wa'aimawan.
Wa'aimawan.
Wa'aimalak.
Wa'aimalak.
Palashah.
Palashah.
I'm Yashabit.
I'm Yashabit.
Tazawar.
Tazawar.
Gum Ashawar.
Gum Ashawar.
Nalawak.
Nalawak.
Imam.
Imam.
Hayawak.
Hayawak.
Zarawak.
Zarawak.
Nabani Lawak.
Nabani Lawak.
Salah.
Salah.
Aishalaham.
Aishalaham.
Kamajim.
Kamajim.
Kasai Sara'ah.
Kasai Sara'ah.
Kayabin.
Kayabin.
Banakal.
Banakal.
Koyashuan.
Koyashuan.
Nashamadwa.
Nashamadwa.
Ba'ayanda Arwa.
Ba'ayanda Arwa.
Hayawa.
Hayawa.
Daman.
Daman.
La'adama.
La'adama.
Shayatamwa.
Shayatamwa.
Nayadamawa.
Nadiyamuwa.
Ka'arab.
Ka'arab.
Wakaza'aba.
Wakaza'aba.
Wakazabak.
Wakazabak.
Wakazazalmanai.
Wakazazalmanai.
Kalasaya-kamwa.
Kalasaya-kamwa.
Ashar.
Ashar.
Amarwa.
Amarwa.
Nayarasha'ah.
Nayarashah.
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 Lanawa.
Lanawa.
Ah. Na'awa.
Na'awa.
Alahayim.
Alahayim.
Alahaya.
Alahaya.
Shayatamwa.
Shayatamwa.
Kagagala.
Kagagala.
Lakwash.
Kakwash.
Lapanyarakwa.
Lapanyarakwa.
Ka'ash.
Ka'ash.
Tab'ira Ya'ira.
Tab'ira Ya'ira.
Wakala Haba.
Wakala Haba.
Thalahat.
Thalahat.
Haryam.
Haryam.
Khan. Daradakma.
Daradakma.
Basa'iraka.
Basa'iraka.
Wabasa Wapaka.
Wabasa Wapaka.
Tabahalam.
Tabahalam.
Mala'ah.
Mala'ah.
Panyaham.
Panyaham.
Kwalawan.
Kwalawan.
Wayabakwashua.
Wayabakwashua.
Shamka.
Shamka.
Yahawa.
Yahawa.
Wayabashua.
Wayabashua.
Yabashua.
Yabashua.
Wayaba'awa.
Wayaba'awa.
Aja'ai.
Aja'ai.
Wayakaparwa.
Wayakapawa.
Wayabadwa.
Wayabadwa.
Wayada'aiwa.
Wayada'aiwa.
Kaya.
Kaya.
Atha. Shamka.
Shamka.
Yahawa.
Yahawa.
Labaka.
Labaka.
Ayawan.
Ayawan.
Al-Ka'aratza.
Al-Ka'aratza.
The water Aman.
The water Aman.
And in the English, keep not thy silence, O Yahweh.
Keep not thy silence, O Yahweh.
Hold not thy peace.
Hold not thy peace.
And be not still.
And be not still.
O Yahweh.
O Yahweh.
For lo, thy enemies make a tumult.
Thy enemies make a tumult.
And they that hate thee
And they that hate thee
have lifted up the head.
have lifted up the head.
They have taken crafty counsel
They have taken crafty counsel
against thy people.
against thy people.
And consulted against thy hidden
And
ones.
consulted against thy hidden ones.
They have said,
They have said,
Come, and let us cut them off.
and let us cut them off
From being a nation,
from being a nation,
that the name of Israel
that the name of Israel
may be no more remembered.
may be no more remembered.
For they have consulted together
For they have consulted together
with one consent.
with one consent.
They are confederate against thee.
They are confederate against thee.
The tabernacles of Edom,
The tabernacles of Edom,
and the Ishmaelites,
and the Ishmaelites
of Moab,
of Moab,
and the Hagarenes,
and the Hagarenes,
Gabal and Ammon,
Gabal and Ammon,
and Amalek, the Philistines, with the inhabitants of Tyre. Asher also is joined with them. They have hope in the children of Lot. Salah. Do unto them as unto the Midianites, as to Sisera, as to Jabez, at the brook of Kishon, which perished at Endor. They became as dung for the earth. Make their nobles like a ram, and like Zered. Yea, all their princes, as Sabbath, and as Zalmunna, who said, let us take to ourselves the houses of Yahweh possession. Oh my power, make them like a wheel, as the stubble before the wind. As the fire burneth the wood, and as the flame setteth the mountains on fire, so persecute them with thy tempest, and make them afraid with thy storm. Fill their faces with shame, that they may seek thy name. O Yahweh, let them be confounded and troubled forever. Yea, let them be put to shame and perish, that men may know that thou, whose name alone is Yahweh, art the most high, over all the earth. So be it.
With that, say, sir, Yeshabian, which means be seated. Up here, Yeshabian, be seated. We're going to pick up where we left off last week. You could, of course, scoop that light back a little bit. Not other way, towards the you turn it this way, so I can scoop it back. What? We had 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 20. We're going to read it in the Hebrew first. Well, we got first to start, but we still going to do the 4 and 3. 1 Kings 19 and 20. YAHISUPK, Ha-Bakwar, Ratazah, Akaria, Alahawa, Amar, Ashaqua, Na'a, La'abya, Wala Amar, Laka, Akaryak, Amar, Lawa, Laka, Shawab, Kaya, Maha, Aishayathaya, Laka, verse 21, Shab, Ma'a Karayawa, Kwaka, Ath, Tazamad, Ha-Bakwar, Slakya, Zabak, Hawa, Wabak, Laya, Ha-Bakwar, Bashalam, Ha-Bashar, Wayathan, La'im, Aklawa, Wayaquam, Wayalak, Akarya, Ayahawa, Wayasharath Hawa. Verse 1 Kings 20 and 1. Waban, Ha-Da, Malak, Aram, Kwabatazah, Ath, Kal, Ka Yalawa, Washalamya, Slakya, Washalashim, Washana, Slakya, Washanaya, Malak, Athwa, Wasa, Warak Kabah, Waya'al, Wayatazar, Al, Shamar,
Shamarwan, Wayalakma, Baha. Verse 2. Wayashalak, Malaakim, Al, Aka, Ak, Abba, Malak, Yasha'ala, I, Yara.
Verse 3. Waya Amar, Lawa, Kaha, Amar, Bun, Hadda, Kasapak, Wahasabak, Laya, Hawa'a, Wana, Shayaka, Waban, Salaki. Wabat, Waba, Nayak, Hatuwa, Bayam, Layak, Ham. Verse 4. Waya Malak, Yasha'ala, Waya Amar, Kada, Barak, Ada, Naya, Hamalak, Baka, Anya, Wakal, Ashar, Laya. Verse 5. Wayashabadwa, Hamalakim, Waya Amaru, Kaha, Amar, Bun, Hadda, La Amar, Kaya, Shalak, Thaya, Aliyak, Salaki, Aliyaka, La Amar, Kasapak, Waza, Habak, Wana, Shayak, Waban, Yak, Layak, Tathan.
I'm sorry.
Now in the English. We have 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 20.
1 Kings chapter 19, verse 20. And he left the oxen and ran after Elijah and said, Let me, I pray thee, kiss my father and my mother, and then I will follow thee. And he said unto him, Go back again, for what have I done to thee? And he returned back from him and took a yoke of oxen and slew them and boiled their flesh with the instruments of the oxen and gave unto the people. And they did eat. Then he arose and went after Elijah and ministered unto him. First Kings chapter 20, verse 1. And Ben-Hadad, the king of Syria, gathered all of his hosts together, and there were 32 kings with him, and horses, and chariots. And he went up and besieged Samaria and warred against it. And he sent messengers to Ahab, king of Israel, into the city, and said unto him, Thus saith Ben-Hadad, Thy silver and thy gold is mine, thy wives also and thy children, even the goodliest are mine. And the king of Israel answered and said, my Lord, O King, according to thy saying, I am thine, and all that I have. And the messengers came again and said, thus speaketh Ben-Hadad, saying, although I have sent unto thee, saying, they shall deliver me thy silver and thy gold and thy wives and thy children.
Which means to stand. Barak, present yourself.
Barak Ban Yahweh Ban Yasha'Allah.
Barak Ban Yahweh Ban Yasha'Allah.
Yahweh Hashem Yahshua Barakatah.
Yahweh Hashem Yahshua Barakatah. Turn it down. Turn it up yourself.
Oh, that's
Up here, Yesharim, which means be seated. We'll pick up where we left off. We have 1 Kings chapter 20, verse 6. We'll read in the Hebrew first.
chapter 20, verse 6. Kaya, Amma, Ka'if, Makal, Ashalak, Af, Ibadiah, Alayak, Waka, Tashawa, Af, Bayathak, Wa'af, Bathaya, Ibadayak, Abadjaka, Wahaya, Kar, Wakamar, Ayan Yaka, Yasha Yamwa, Bayadam, Wala Kakawa, verse 7, Waya Kara'a, Malak, Yasha Allah, Lakal, Zakanya, Ha'a, Rataza, Waya Amar, Da'awa, Na'a, Wara Awa, Wakaya, Ra'ai, Zahar, Mabakash, Kaya, Shalak, Alaya, Lana Shaya, Wala Banya, Wala Kasapaya, Wala Zahabia, Wala Mana'ithia, Mamanawa, verse 8, Waya Amarwa, Alayawa, Kar, Hazakanyam, Wakal, Ha'an, Thashamai, Wala Wa'a, Tha'aba, verse 9, Waya Amar, Lama La'akya, Bun, Hadad, Amarwa, La'adanya, La'adanya, Hamalak, Kar, Ashar, Shalakath, Ibadak, Ibadakar, Ibadka, Salami, Baba Ashana, Aisha, Wahadabal, Hazar, La'a, Awa, Kar, La'aisha Wath, Waya Lakwa, Hamala Akat, Hamar La'akayam, Waya Shabab Hawa, the ball, verse 10, Waya Shalak, Alayawa, Bun, Hadad, Waya Amor, Kaha, Ya'aisha 1, Laya, Alahayim, Waka, Yawa Sapawa, Amma, Yasha Pak, Ipar, Shamar 1, Lasha I Layam, Lakal, Ha'an, Ashar, Baruch Galia, verse 11. YAHANNA, Malak, Yasha'ala, Amor, Deborah, Getha, Hala, Kagar, Kamapath, verse 12. Wayahaya, Kashamai, Ath, Hadabar, Hazah, Wahawa'a, Shatha, Hawa'a, Waha, Malakayam, Basakawa, Waya Amor, Ibadiwa, Shayamwa, Waya Shayamwa, Hayah.
Messiah Christ. In the English, we have 1 Kings chapter 20, verse 6.
Verse 6. Yet I will send my servants unto thee tomorrow about this time, and they shall search thine house, and the houses of thy servants, and it shall be that whosoever is pleasant in thine eyes, they shall put in their hand and take it away. Then the king of Israel called all the elders of the land and said, Mark, I pray you, and see how this man seeketh mischief. For he sent unto me for my wives, and for my children, and for my silver, and for my gold, and I denied him not. Verse 8. And all the elders and all the people said unto him, hearken not unto him, nor consent. Verse 9. Wherefore he said unto the messengers of Ben-Hadad, tell my lord the king all that thou didst for to thy servant at the first I will do, but this thing I may not do. And the messengers departed and brought him word again. Verse 10. And Ben-Hadad said unto him and said, the gods do so unto me, and more also, if the dust of Samaria shall suffice for handfuls for all the people that follow me. Verse 11. And the king of Israel answered and said, tell him, let not him that girdeth on his harness boast himself as he that pulleth it off. Verse 12. And it came to pass, when Ben-Hadad heard this message, as he was drinking, he and the kings in the pavilions, that he said unto his servants, set your sails in array. And they set themselves in array against the city.
Messiah Christ. Up here, imagine, which means to stand. Young man, Wayne, present yourself. What you do, you come right here, come around this way. Matter of fact, Kagar, present yourself. That's a lot. So you can see how it's done real quick. That's a fine garment too, bro. Wow.
Kagar ma banya hawda banya shala.
Kagar ma banya hawda banya shala.
Yahweh Shem Yahshua Brakatham.
Yahweh Shem Yahshua Brakatham.
Up here, Yeshavu, which means be seated. We're going to pick up where we left off. We had 1 Kings chapter 20, verse 13. We're going to read it in the Hebrew first. And if you could, brothers, Salaki, one of y'all show him how to download what we got right here, or somebody send it to him. So he can follow along as well. Just the Hebrew we read now, the ancient Hebrew. No, go ahead.
In the Hebrew, verse 13. YAHANNA, Nabayah, Akkad, Nagash, Al, Aka'ab, Malak, Yasha'ala, Wayamar, Kaha, Amar, Yahweh, Abahayah, Kal, Hahamawan, Hagadawal, Hazah, Hananiah, Nathan Nawa, Bayadak, Hayawam, Wayadai, Kaya, Anaya, Yahweh, verse 14. Wayamar, Aka'a, Bamaya, Wayamar, Kaha, Amar, Yahweh, Bana Iria, Sharaya, Hamadaya Nawa, Amar, Maya, Sar, Slaki, Yahasar, Hamalakama, Amar, Atha, verse 15. Yakad, Naaraya, Sharaya, Hamadayanawat, Yawa, Ma'atayam, Shanayam, Washala Shayam, Wa'akara Yaham, Pakad, Cow, Ha'ain, Cow, Banaya, Yashara Allah, Sha'abai, Allah Payam, verse 16. Wayataza Awa, Bataza Harayam, Waban, Hadad, Shatha, Shakawar, Basa Kawa, Hawa'a, Wahamalakayam, Shalashayam, Washanayam, Malak, Izar, Athar, verse 17. Wayataza Awa, Awa, Na'iria, Sharia, Hamadaya Nawaf, Bara Ashan Na, Wayashalak, Ban, Hadad, Wayagayadawa, Lawa, La'amar, Anashayam, Yataza Awa, Mashama Rawan, verse 19. Wa'alaha, Yataza Awa, Manah, Ha'izar, Na'araya, Sharaya, Hamadaya Nawah, Wahakayal, Ashar, Akara Yaham, verse 20.
Also, too, if anybody wants to eat, brother, one of y'all brothers get the serving plates going to so we can eat during the service. Shalom to the sisters too, but just getting there. You understand? So now we're gonna read it in the Hebrew. We had 1 Kings chapter 20, verse 13.
In the English. And behold, there came a prophet unto Ahab, king of Israel, saying, Thus saith the Lord, hast thou seen all this great multitude? Behold, I will deliver it unto thine hand this day, and thou shalt know that I am the Lord. Verse 14. And Ahab said, By whom? And he said, Thus said the Lord, even by the young men of the princes of the provinces. Then he said, Who shall order the battle? And he answered, Thou. Then he numbered the young men of the princes and provinces, that they were 232. And after them he numbered all the people, even all the children of Israel, being 7,000. Verse 16. And they went out at noon, but at Ben-Hadad was drinking himself drunk in a pavilions. He and the kings, and 32 kings that helped him. Verse 17. And the young men of the princes of the provinces went out first, and Ben-Hadad sent out. And they told him, saying, There are men come out of Samaria. Verse 18. And he said, Whether they be come out for peace, take them alive, or whether they be come out for war, take them alive. Verse 19. So these young men of the princes of the provinces came out of the city, and the army which followed them.
So to catch you up to speed about what's going on right here. So now Ben-Hadad, the king of Syria, has now captured Samaria. Understand? And Samaria at this point in time was ruled by Ahab, who's king of Israel. And so Ben-Hadad is telling King Ahab, who's king of Israel, the northern kingdom, he's saying, give me your gold, give me your silver, your women, your wives, and children. Give me everything. I want everything. And Ahab agreed to this. He gave him everything that Ben-Hadad, the king of Syria, requested. You can leave that right there. And so Ben-Hadad, being the filthy heathen that he is, he sent messengers to King Ahab and said, now that you gave me everything that I wanted, I'm going to send my servants, my messengers, to come and search all your houses, and whatever they like, they're going to take. And King Ahab was like, we just gave you everything that you requested. You know what I'm saying? So he told him, I'm denying your second request. Go ahead, do your thing. And he said, you're not going to get any more than what I gave you. So now Ben-Hadad has arranged men to go to war against Ahab, the king of Israel. Right now, and that's what we read about, what we're up to right now. Up here, imagine, which means to stand. Up here. Young man Dwayne, present yourself. So what you do is you come around right here. You bring it up. I'm gonna read the Hebrew for you, Buck Shaw. You still come up right here. So what you do is you come to Imagine Shabbat.
Imagine Shabbat.
So right here, yep. And Imagine Barak. Right here, you don't have to say it, Bucks. And then you'll say. Then you'll say the registry. So your name, young man Dwayne.
Young man Dwayne.
And then what tribe?
Judah.
So you say Ban Yahawada.
Ban Yahawada.
Ban Yasha'ala.
Ban Yasha'ala.
So what you're doing right here is the age-old custom that we've always done with brothers. Before they can come present themselves up here, they have to state their registry from who they come from, so that we know that you're Israel. Historically speaking, these staves would be, if you weren't Israel, you get smite down right here in the temple. You understand? Because we don't allow anybody that's not Israel. So what you just did was you just stated, I'm Israel. So you say, young man Dwayne, son of Judah, son of Israel. That's what that is. And then you stay right there and we'll repeat it. So let's do it again. So you just got it. So it's like it. So yeah. You go to Imagine Shabbat.
I say.
Yeah.
Imagine Shabbat.
No, when I say it, you don't have to say that. So it's Imagine Shabbat right there. I imagine Barak. And then you'll say, no, you present yourself. So you say, young man Dwayne.
Young man Dwayne.
Ban Yahawada.
Ban Yahawada.
Ban Yasha'ala.
Ban Yasha'ala.
Young man Dwayne. Ban Yahawada. Ban Yasha'ala. Then you go back. No, you put your heart, you slap your arm down, and then you now salute. So you go to Imagine Shabbat, Imagine Barak, and then that's when you salute.
Yahweh Basham, Yahweh Shah Barakatah.
Yahweh Shah Barakatah. You wait right here. You step down. And for everybody that's watching, what we're doing is literally in the scriptures. It's listed. It mentions this about how we always carry out the Sabbath service. Come up right. Sure. Up here, Yeshabim, which means be seated. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to read it in the Hebrew. After we finish in the Hebrew, you'll read the verses that I just read in the Hebrew. Okay, so let's say, where we at in the question?
We're at 1 Kings 20 and 20 through 26.
All right, the water. 1 Kings chapter 20, verse 20. Wayakawa, Ayashwa, Wayanasawa, Aram, Wayarat, it's like right, it's like Wayaradakma, Yasha'ala, Wayamalak, Banhadab, Malak, Aram, Sawat, Waparashium, verse 21. Wayakaza'ah, Malak, Yasha'ala, Wayak, Asawasa, Wa'af, Harakah, Bahaka, Ba'aram, Makah, Gadawala, verse 22. Wayagash, Hanabaya'ah, Malak, Yasha'ala, Waya Amal, Lawa, Laka, Hathakazak, Wada, Walra'i, Ashar, Ta'isha, Kaya, Lakashawabath, Hashanah, Malak, Aram, Ayla, Alyaka, verse 23. Wa'abadia, Malak, Aram, Amarwa, Alyawa, Alahaya, Haryam, Alahayim, Khan, Kazakwa, Mama Nawa, Wa'awalam, Nalakam, Atham, Bamayash, Bama Yashawar, La'a, Nakazak, Maham, verse 24, Wa'a, Hadabar, Hazar, Aimab, Hasar, Hamalakyam, Ayash, Mamakwamwa, White Slaki, Washiyam, Pakwawath, Thakatha Yaham, verse 25, Wa'atha, Thamana, Laka, Kaya, Kakaya, Hanapa, Hanapa, Ma'awathka, Wasa, Kasawasa, Waraka, Kawaka, Wana Lakam, Lakuma, Watha, Awatham, Bamashiawar, Bama Yashawar, La'a, Nakazak, Maham, Wayashima, La Kolam, Aisha, Kana, verse 26, Wayahaya, Lata Shawab, Lata Shawabat, Hashana, Wayapakwa, Bana, Ban, Hadar, Af, Aram, Waya'ab, Apakwa, Lama Lakam, Lakuma, Ayin, Yasha'ala, verse 27. Now we're going to read it in the English. We have 1 Kings chapter 20, verse 20. Yeah, chapter 20, verse 20. So we're going to read it up here and you read it in the English. 1 Kings chapter 20, verse 20.
1 Kings chapter 20, verse 20. And they slew every one his man, and the Syrians fled, and Israel pursued them. And Ben-Hadad, the king of Syria, escaped on a horse with the horsemen. Verse 21. And the king of Israel went out and smote the horses and chariots, and slew the Syrians with a great slaughter. Verse 22. And the prophet came to the king of Israel and said unto him, Go, strengthen thyself, and mark, and see what thou doest. For at the return of the year, the king of Syria will come up against thee. Verse 23. And the servants of the king of Syria said unto him, Their gods are gods of the hills. Therefore, they were stronger than we. But let us fight against them in the plain, and surely we shall be stronger than they. Verse 24. And do this thing. Take the kings away, every man out of his place, and put captains in their rooms. Verse 25. And number thee an army, like the army that thou hast lost, horse for horse, and chariot for chariot. And we shall fight against them in the plain, and surely we shall be stronger than they. And he hearkened unto their voice, and did so. Verse 26. And it came to pass at the return of the year that Ben-Hadad numbered the Syrians and went up to I.S.U.P.K to fight against Israel.
So what's going on right now is Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, just rose an army against Ahab and Israel. And the prophet told Ahab, you're going to win this war. And that's what happened. Ben-Hadad and those filthy heathens lost the war against King Ahab. Right. But the prophet also told Ahab, get ready again, because at the end of the year, the beginning of the year, they are going to raise an army against you again. And now Ben-Hadad, he's thinking that he lost the war because we had the advantage in the hills. If you know anything about military, it's always better to have the higher ground. Right. You understand? And this is how arrogant these heathens are. They never want to give our victory and our credit to God being on our side. You understand? That's why he said, the gods of the hills were on their side. Meaning he looking at it like the Lord didn't make me lose. We lost because we didn't have the right environment. We just wasn't in the right spot. Instead of saying and looking at it like the Lord is not with me, you understand? The Lord is with his people. And so now he's saying, he's planning it out. He was like, next time we fight, we're not going to fight them how we fought them in the hills. We're going to fight in the plains. It was all flat land. So nobody has the advantage. You understand? So now we'll see whoever's the better army and warriors is going to win. So that's what we read about where we at now. Up here, I-M-A-J, which means to stand. Who's next? I'll watch you. Present yourself. Somebody take on the brother Baba Shop. What you looking for?
My phone.
You got it right there?
Yes, sir.
I will walk you. Bun Gad, Bun Yasha Allah.
I will watch you. Bun Gad, Bun Yasha Allah.
Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shabbat Rakatham.
Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shabbat Rakatham. Up here, Yeshavi, which means be seated. We're going to pick up where we left off. We had 1 Kings chapter 20, verse 27. I'm going to continue to read this one while we show. 1 Kings chapter 20, verse 27. Wabanaya, Yasha'ala, Hathapakwat the what? Wakal, Salaki, Waka Lakalawa, Waya Lakawa, Lakwa Atham, Waya Kanawa, Banya, Yasha'ala, Nagadam, Kashanaya, Kashapaya, Isaiah, Wa'aram, Mala'awa, Ha'arataza, verse 28, Wayagash, Ayash, Ha'alahayim, Waya Amal, Malak, Yasha'ala, Waya Amal, Kaha, Amal, Yahweh, Ya'ain, Ashar, Amal, Aram, Alahaya, Harayam, Yahweh, Wala'a, Alahaya, Imakoyam, Hawa'a, Wanafathia, Af, Ka, Hahama one, Ha Gadawal, Hazah, Bayatka, Waya Da'itham, Kaya, Anaya, Yahweh, verse 29, Waya Kanawa, Al, Allah, Nakak, Allah, Shaba'ith, Yamyam, Wayahaya, Bayawam, Hashabayaya, Watha Korah, Watha Korah, Hamalakma, Mayakawa, Banya, Yasha'ala, Aram, Ma'ar, Allah, Ragalaya, Bayawam, Akkad, verse 30, Waya Nasawa, Hana Watha, Hana Wa Tharayim, Apakwa, Ha'ayar, Wathapa, Hakwawam, Hakwama, Aisharium, Washabai, Allah, Ayash, Hana Wa, Hana Watha Rayam, Waban, Hadad, Nasar, Wayaba'a, Ha'ayar, Kadar, Kadar, verse 31, Waya Amaru, Alua, Ibadiwa, Hana, Na'a, Shemainoa, Kaya, Malakia, Bayath, Yasha'ala, Kaya, Malakia, Kasad, Hama, Nashayam, Nashayima, Na'a, Shakwayam, Bamath Nayainoa, Wakwabayum, Barashnawa, Wanataza, Malak, Yasha'ala, Awalaya, Yakahyawa, Slaki, Yak Yaha, Napashka, verse 32, Wayakagawa, Shakwayim, Bamath Nayayim, not Slaki, Bamath Nayaham, Wakobayim, Barashyaham, Wayabaawa, Malak, Yasha'ala, Waya Amawa, Ibadka, Ban, Hadad, Amal, Fakia, Slaki, Fakaya, Na'a, Napashia, Waya Amal, Iwadnawa, Kaya, Akaya, Awa'a, verse 33, Waha Slaki, Waha Anashiam, Yanaka Slaki, Yanak Shawa, Waya Hamawa, Waya Kalakwa, Ama Manawa, Waya Amawa, Akayak, Ban Hadad, Waya Amal, Ba'awa, Kwak Hawa, Wayataza, Alyawa, Ban Hadad, Waya Al Slaki, Waya Alhawa, Al, Hamarak Kaba. In English, we have 1 Kings chapter 20, verse 27. We're going to read it in English. Salaki.
1 Kings chapter 20, verse 27. And the children of Israel were numbered and were all present and went against them. And the children of Israel pitched before them like two little flocks of kids. But the Syrians filled the country. And there came a man of God and spake unto the king of Israel and said, Thus saith the Lord, because the Syrians have said, The Lord is God of the hills, but he is not God of the valleys. Therefore will I deliver all this great multitude in thy hand, and ye shall know that I am the Lord. And they pitched one over against the other 7 days. And so it was that in the 7th day the battle was joined. And the children of Israel slew of the Syrians 100,000 footmen in 1 day. But the rest fled to I.S.U.P.K, into the city. And there a wall fell upon 27,000 of the men that were left. And Ben-Hadad fled and came into the city into an inner chamber. And his servant said unto him, Behold, we have heard that the kings of the house of Israel are merciful kings. Let us, I pray thee, put sackcloth on our loins and ropes upon our heads and go out to the king of Israel. Peradventure, he will save thy life. Verse 32. So they girded sackcloth on their loins and put ropes on their heads and came to the king of Israel and said, Thy servant Ben-Hadad saith, I pray thee, let me live. And he said, Is he yet alive? He is my brother. Verse 33. Now the men did diligently observe whether anything would come from him, and did hastily catch it. And he said, Thy brother Ben-Hadad. Then he said, Go ye, bring him. Then Ben-Hadad came forth to him, and he caused him to come up into the chariot.
Right. So what we just read about right here. So what's going on right here is now Israel are going to fight the Syrians again. And it just said how Israel, in comparison to the Syrian armies, is like two little flocks of sheep. because the Syrians were mighty in number. So imagine you look out into the horizon and all you see is an army, a plethora of all these soldiers. And the Most High saying that the king of Syria, Ben-Hadad, he charged our victory the first time to the advantage that we had in the hills. That's what the scripture says. Because you say that our God is only the God of the hills and not the valley. Like you think because if we fight in the plain, you'll be victorious over God's people. The Lord is going to prove to you that you're going to lose with all these numbers. You're going to lose against Israel, who was small in number compared to the Syrians. You understand? Like we killed 100,000 of their soldiers, and then 27,000 more were killed when the wall fell as they were retreating. Like the Lord proved that day who he sides with. The Lord never sides with who you think he'll side with. Numbers mean absolutely nothing. And I wish you fake Israelites, you sodomites would understand that. It doesn't matter how many you come up against us, you're going to lose every single time.
Right.
Not because we know how to fight, because we do, but because the Lord is on our side. You understand? And you'll lose against the Lord. You can't beat the Lord. You understand? If we were to sin, you would beat us. Because the Lord wouldn't be on our side. But sadly enough, the Lord is on our side and you're going to lose. You might want to come on the winning side. Go ahead, McQuarrie.
Just like what is important stands out to me in this passage is that we killed 100,000 men in one day. Do you know how long it takes for a number that's small to kill 100,000 people by sword and mace and daggers and arrows? You know how long it takes to do that? 100,000 people in one day? Come on.
Right. And once again, it's the Lord just highlighting the fact that when he does something, you'll know this had to be the Lord.
Right.
Like McQuarrie said, it's so hard. You have to understand warfare. It's hard to kill 100,000 people in one day with guns.
Right.
Let alone these brothers had swords and axes and mace and all that. And they killed 100,000 men, which lets you know the Lord was making a statement. Like, I did this. They won because I'm with them and I'm against you. And that's the UPK right here. We're going to win every time. And it's not being arrogant. I'm telling you because you might want to count the cost when you go to war with these brothers. Up here, I imagine, which means a stand. Who's next? Go ahead, Brock. Brock, present yourself.
Barak ban Yahweh ban Yasha'Allah.
Barak ban Yahweh ban Yasha'Allah.
Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shah Barakatham.
Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shah Barakatham. Up here, Yeshabu, which means be seated. We're going to pick up where we left off. We're at 1 Kings chapter 20, verse 34.
Verse 34. Wayamah Allah Yahweh Ka'ai Rayam Ashal Lakaka Abayah Ma'ath Abayak Ashayah Waka Watazawath Tashayam Laka Barak Mashak Ka'ashal Sham Abayah Basham Marawan Wa'a Naya Babaryath Ashalaka Waya Karath Lawa Barayath Wayashalaka Hawa. Verse 35. Wa'ayash Akab Mabanaya Salaki Mabanya Salaki Hanaba Ya'ayim Amal Ad Ra'ayat Hawa Barabal Yahweh Haka Yanya Na'a Waya Ma'an Ha'ayash Laha Kayafua. Verse 36. Waya Amal Lawa Ya'ain Ashal La'a Shama'aith Bakawal Yahweh Hanak Hawalak Ma'athir Ma'athia, Wahaka, Ha'a, Raya, Wayalak, Ma'a, Tazalawa, Waya, Mataza, Ahawa, Ha'a, Raya, Waya, Kahawa, verse 37, Waya, Mataza, Ayash, Hakar, Waya Amor, Hakanya, Na'a, Waya Ka'awa, Ha'ayam, Ha'ayash, Hayak, Wapatazai, verse 38, Wayalak, Hana Baya'a, Waya'ai, Waya'amai, Lamalak, Hadarak, Wayath, Kapash, Ba'apal, Ayan Yawa, verse 39, Wayahaya, Hamalak, Ibal, Wa'a, Taza'ik, Taza'ik, Hamalak, Waya Amor, Ibadak, Yataza'a, Bakara, Hamalakam, Wahan, Ayash, So, Waya Ba'a, Alaya, Ayash, Waya Amor, Shamal, Ath, Ha'ayash, Hazar, Amar, Hapakad, Yapaskad, Wahaya Yatha, Napashak, Thakath, Napashwa, Awar, Kakar, Kasak, Tashakawala, Tashakawal, verse 40, Wayahaya, Ibadak, Aisha, Hana, Wahan, Wahawa, Ayan Nawa, Waya Amor, Alayawa, Malak, Yasha'ala, Khan, Mashapatka, Atha, Karatazath. That's it.
That's it, 40? I venture to say, not only will you lose against the brothers, now I wouldn't know, but I would venture to say, UPK sisters cook better than you think. Like,
Damn right.
That's a lie. I never had they take cooking, but I just can assume we went in that aspect too. So, like, we're going to read in the English.
Verse 34, and Benadad said unto him, the cities which my father took from thy father, I will restore, and thou shalt make streets for thee in Damascus, as my father made in Samaria. Then said Ahab, I will send thee away with this covenant. So he made a covenant with him and sent him away. Verse 35, and a certain man of the sons of the prophets said unto his neighbor in the word of the Lord, smite me, I pray thee. And the man refused to smite him. Verse 36, then said he unto him, because thou hast not obeyed the voice of the Lord, behold, as soon as thou art departed from me, a lion shall slay thee. And as soon as he was departed from him, a lion found him and slew him. Verse 37, then he found another man and said, smite me, I pray thee. And the man smote him so that in smiting he wounded him. Verse 38, so the prophet departed and waited for the king by the way, and disguised himself with ashes upon his face. And as the king passed by, he cried unto the king and said, thy servant went out into the midst of the battle, and behold, a man turned aside and brought a man unto me and said, keep this man. If by any means he be missing, then shall thy life be for his life, or else thou shalt pay a talent of silver. Verse 40. And as thy servant was busy here and there, he was gone. And the king of Israel said unto him, so shall thy judgment be. Thyself hath decided.
Right, good work. So what's going on here is a man of the Lord, a son of the prophet, you understand, went, and we're going to read why he's doing this. He told one brother he ran into to smite him, to hit me. brother refused to do that. And so the Lord put him to death because, with some of you understand, the prophets are the voice of the Lord. You understand? And this brother, it's a reason why he's asking for this to happen. And we're going to break it down once we get to the next 7, so we get the context. Up here, go ahead, sis.
You may have covered this, so if I'm bringing it back up again, I can cover it. But I was trying to figure out in the previous chapters where Ahab and Jezebel and all of those issues, and Elijah went and hiding and everything.
Mm-hmm.
How we got to the moment where we're in these battles and the Lord is on Ahab's side, but Ahab was doing all the bad stuff. So was there a moment in which the Lord was like, I'm gonna support you now because now you kind of turned away from doing bad things?
That's exactly what it is, sis. If we go back to it, it will show how Ahab he helped Elijah reserve prophets.
Okay.
Like it was a point because Ahab seen what happened when Elijah was brought up against the other. I don't know if you remember when we read.
Right, yeah. And then you bring it up.
Right, yeah.
Back to me. My second question
No sweat,
was about what chapter is this? 19 and verse 16 about Jehu, the son of Nimshi, and so it's like somebody, I guess a voice is talking to Elijah.
Mm-hmm.
But I was trying to figure out where does Jehu and the other guy, Hazael, come into play? Because when we get to 20, they talk about Ben-Hadad. So I was just trying to.
I believe this might be a future prophecy because this is talking to Elisha right here, not Elijah. So I believe this hasn't happened yet, as far as I believe, because we read through it and we didn't get to the point where Jehu was king yet.
Right.
So I believe this is what he was prophesying to him, what was going to happen to him.
Okay.
Elisha's going to be killed by Jehu.
Okay.
You understand? But your first question, what's his name? Elijah. When Elijah defeated the false prophets, and that's another scripture too you can use to show how a lot of Christians see that incident with IUIC, and because they don't understand warfare in the Bible, they say God is not pleased with this. We making Israelites look bad, and we should all come together, when that's never been the case. That's never been in the scriptures. Elijah, it says how Elijah mocked them cats because they weren't serving the Lord. You understand? We always warred against people that tried to divide our people and make us go and serve other gods. And when King Ahab seen the power that Elijah wielded from the Lord, that's when he was like, maybe I should start protecting these prophets. And so that's why the Lord turned his anger from Ahab. Okay. Because he seen the power and he started to reserve men to protect them, even though he could have just been a man and dealt with his woman. But he hiding too, like he in trouble. You're saying when he's the king, we'll show you the spirit of that cat. He had the spirit of Derek Jackson. That's what that is. He got the actual simp spirit. It's like, how about you, instead of hiding the prophets, how about you tell your woman you in charge and there will be no more killing of the Lord's prophets? Right. It makes more sense. But when you're a weak man, you look for the path of least resistance. You understand? Where we at? That's the end of that. Here, Imagine, which means to stay. I hope that answers your question. Kagar, you good? Brother Sharp? Kagar, present yourself.
Kagar Mouth, Banya Howard, Banya Shala.
Kagar Mouth, Banya Howard, Banya Shala.
Yahba Shim Yah Shabrakatham.
Yahba Shim Yah Shabrakatham.
Also, too, if anybody feels comfortable, they want like a mask or some hand sanitizer, just raise your hand and ask for it, and it'll be provided to you. We got children's masks as well. Up here, Yeshabim, which means be seated. We are at 1 Kings chapter 20, verse 41. We're going to read it in the Hebrew first. You go ahead whenever you got it.
Waya Waya Mahar Mara Waya Sar Ha'apar Ma'al Ayanayawa Wayakar Athawa Malak Yashara Ala Kaya Maha Nabaayam Hawa'a verse Napashawa Wa'ai
42.
Oh yes, Laki. Verse 42. Waya Amar. Allah Yahweh. Kaha. Amar. Yahweh. Ya'ain. Shalakah. Ayash. Karamaya. Mayad. Yahayata. Napashak. Takaf. Napashawa. Wa'amak. Takaf. Imawa. Verse 43. Wayalak. Malak. Yashar Allah. Al. Wayatawa. Sar. Waza. Apa. Wayaza. Sapa. Wayaba. Shamara Wana. 1 Kings chapter 21, verse 1. Wayahaya. Akar. Hadabara Yam. Ha'Allah. Karam. Hazak. It's like Hayat. Lanaba Wa. Hayazar. Iliyah. Ashar. Baya Zara Al. Atazala. Hayalak. Aka'a. Malak. Shamarawan. Verse 2. Wayadabar. Aka'a. Al. Nabawath. La'amar. Dana. Laya. Karamak. Wayahaya. Laya. Lagan. Yarak. Kaya. Hayawa. Karawa. Atazala. Bayathaya. Wa'atana. Laka. Thak. Yawa. Karam. Tawa. Mamanawa. Tawa. Ba'ai Yana Yak. Athana. Laka. Kasa. Makaya. Zaha. Verse 3. Wayamar. Nabawath. Al. Aka'a. Kalaya Laha. Laya. Maya Hawa. Matataya. Nakala. Abataya. Laka. Verse 4. Wayaba. Aka'a. Al. Bayathawa. Sar. Waza'a. Al. Adabar. Hadabar. Ashar. Dabar. Alayawa. Nabawath. Hayazara. Alia. Waya Amar. La'a. Athan. Laka. Nakala. Abawathia. Wayashaka. Al. Matathawa. Wayasa. Panayawa. Wala'a. Akal. Lakam.
That's it. We're going to read it in English now. We have 1 Kings chapter 20, verse 41.
Verse 41 in English. And he hasted and took the ashes away from his face. And the king of Israel discerned him that he was the prophets. And he said unto him, Thus said the Lord, because thou hast let go out of thy hand a man who appointed unto destruction, therefore thy life shall go for his life, and thy people for his people. And the king of Israel went to his house, heavy and displeased, and came to Samaria. 1 Kings chapter 21, verse 1. And it came to pass after these things that Naboth of Jezreelite had a vineyard, which was in Jezreel, hard by the palace of Ahab, king of Samaria. And Ahab spake unto Naboth, saying, give me thy vineyard, that I might have it for a garden of herbs, because it is near unto my house, and I will give thee for a better vineyard than it. Or if it seem good to thee, I will give thee the worth of it in money. And the boss said to Ahab, the Lord forbid it me, that I shall give the inheritance of thy fathers unto thee. Verse 4. And Ahab came unto the house heavy and displeased because of the word which Naboth of Jezreelite had spoken to him. For he had said, I will not give thee the inheritance of thy fathers. And he had laid him down upon his bed and turned away his face and would eat no bread.
Outside of Christ. So what just happened here, from the 7 we read before, this prophet, he created this scenario because he's going to prove a point. The reason why he had this brother hit him and he put ashes on his face and he went to the king presenting a situation because he wanted, okay, it's the same way how, if you remember when King David sinned and he took, what's the brother? Uriah's wife. The prophet came and presented to David a scenario. Instead, he gave a scenario that was similar to what David did, but in a way that David didn't know it was referring to him. This prophet just did the exact same thing. You understand? So he got hit in the face and he had ashes and he acted like his servant left. You understand? And so he's asking the king, what should be the judgment for the servant? And the king is like, you know what I'm saying, the servant should be put to death. And that's why it says, if you go back to verse, where we at? So go back to read 42. 20 and 42, Bible show.
Verse 42. And he said unto him, thus said the Lord, because thou hast let go out of thy hand a man who appointed to utter destruction. Therefore thy father shall go for his life.
Thy life shall go for his life.
Therefore thy life shall go for his life, and thy people for his people.
Right. So what it's saying right here, he made a comparison to him having a servant, and his servant is supposed to be in his control, and his servant left. And he made this comparison because King Ahab did something that the Lord did not want to be done. When he killed them Sumerians, he should have killed all of them. But now he allowed Ben-Hadad, the king of Syria, to come and present himself and for mercy. And so the prophet heard this, and he was like, he's telling him now, like, because you let go out of your hands who the Lord appointed for destruction, now he's going to let him and his people live. He'll just destroy you and your people. You're going to read about what happens to King Ahab later because of this same thing. The same way King Saul was given the order to kill all the Amalekites. And he saved the king and a couple of goats and sheep. And then he told Saul, from this day forth, the kingdom is going to be taken from you because you didn't follow what the Lord said. Obedience is better than sacrifice, man. Right. That's in the scriptures. Be obedient. Follow the order. Right. That's it. Follow the order. You don't have to understand the order. Right. Just follow the order, man. And it's so important because the Lord will take one thing that you did and he's like, you know what? I really don't want him. I don't want him here like I thought I did. You know, he's not fit to do this. He can't follow an order. The Lord is going to destroy Ahab because of this. You understand? And this shows you the spirit of the Most High. While you want to love the heathens and join us to the heathens and hold hands, the Lord wants them gone, man. He wants them underneath the subjection of our people. That's the God of the Bible, if you didn't know. Right. That's the true spirit of the Bible, where blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans rule the earth with everybody else in our subjection, man. Because in that day, you'll see just how great the earth is supposed to be. You understand? With that, I say Amajin, which means it's Slaki. Also, too, sis, your question you asked about Jehu. Jehu was a ruler of another land, and he appointed this brother to be king over Israel. So Jehu wasn't an Israelite. He wasn't somebody that was going to be the king of Israel. This is not a future prophecy. This is what's going on, where he was a leader of another land, and he appointed this brother king over Israel. Because at this time, Israel and Judah were separate. And so because Israel was sinning, they made leagues and alliances with other nations. So because of that, it gave heathens control and a voice in who was ruling over our people in the northern kingdom. And Jehu, the son of Nimshi, was a heathen that appointed, who he appointed? I forgot the brother's name. It says it right here in verse 15 through 18, but it tells you he appointed, I believe his name was Hazael. Yeah, but I believe that was his name, or Abel Mahola. He appointed him to be king, and that's why this is saying this right here. Like, this wasn't a future prophecy. It seemed like the timeline would jump from here to here, but it's all concurrent.
Okay.
If that answers your questions. We go into a little bit more next week about the show. And with that, I say I imagine which means I stand. You could, of course.
La Yasha'Allah.
Oh, shalom.
Then I say Amijin, which means to stand. Wapanyahakwinam, which means turn and face the east. We're going to say the Lord's Prayer first in Hebrew. Repeat after me. Abanaw.
Abanaw.
Shabbat Shemayim.
Shabbat Shemayim.
Kadash.
Kadash.
I.S.U.P.K.
I.S.U.P.K.
Yahweh.
Yahweh.
Malak with Ka.
Malak with Ka.
Taba'ah. Ratzaka.
Ratzaka.
I.S.U.P.K.
I.S.U.P.K.
I.S.U.P.K. Baratza.
Baratza.
Kawak.
I.S.U.P.K.
I.S.U.P.K. Bashamayim.
Bashamayim.
The thunder now.
The thunder now.
Lakam.
Cow.
Yawak.
Yawak.
Wasalaki now.
Wasalaki now.
Kabawaki now.
Kabawaki now.
Kasalaki now.
Kasalaki now.
Kabawaki now.
Kabawaki now.
Wala'ah. W.I. now.
W.I. now.
When I say one.
When I say one.
A ball.
I
was shy now.
My young. Right. Kaya. Look up. I'm a lockwood.
Slaki. Wa'ala.
Wa'ala.
Wa'apar.
Amen. And in the English, our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done. In earth. As it is in heaven. Give us this day. Our daily bread. And forgive us our debts. As we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation. But deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom. And the power. And the glory. Forever. So be.
We'll say, cut the power of
Yahweh.
Bahashim. Yahushua. Baba Kashab. The thunder now. Hakak.
Larpa'ah.
Kalmakala.
Kalmakala.
Wakal
Hakak.
Lots of hard.
Hamatazariah. Hakak. Lahaku. Hamathi. Hakak. Arakawa. Atama
The
Garashun.
Bashim Yahushua. The water Aman.
And in the English, Yahweh. In the name of Yahweh. Please give us the power. The power to heal. All manner of sickness. And all manner of disease. The power to cleanse the leper. The power to raise the dead. The power against unclean spirits. To cast them out. In the name of Yahweh. Thank you. So be.
We'll say, bless Israel. Yahweh.
Bahashim.
Yahushua.
Baraklanau. Wayasha'Allah. Wahabaya. Sapari. Barak. Rapah. Magun. Bahashim Yahushua. The water Aman.
And in the English, Yahweh. In the name of Yahweh. Bless us. And Israel. And the school. Bless. Heal. Shield. Protect. Our loved one. In the name of Yahweh. Thank you. So be.
We'll say Psalms 121. Asha'ah.
Ayanya.
Ahahari. Ma'ayan. Yaba'ah. Izari.
Ma'ayin.
Yahweh.
I.S.U.P.K.
Shemayim.
Wa'aratza. Ayathan. Namawat. Magalka. Ayanawam.
Shamarka.
Hanna.
La'ah.
Yanawam. Wala'ah. Yayashun.
Yashamar. Shalomar.
Yasha'Allah.
Yahweh.
Shamarka.
Yahweh.
Yahweh.
Zazaka.
Tazalka,
Al-Yah,
Al-Yah,
Yamyaka,
Yamyaka,
Yawamam,
Yawamam,
Hashemash,
Hashemash,
La'ah,
La'ah,
Yakaka,
Yakaka,
Wayarak,
Wayarak,
Balayala,
Balayala,
Yahweh,
Yahweh,
Yashamarka,
Yashamarka,
Makara,
Makara,
Yashamar,
Yashamar,
Afnapashka,
Afnapashka,
Yahweh,
Yahweh,
Yashamar,
Yashamar,
Taza'aka,
Taza'aka,
Wabawa'aka,
Wabawa'aka,
Ma'aitha,
Ma'aitha,
Wa'aid-Awaram,
Wa'aid-Awaram,
Wa'ad-Aman,
the water of month.
And in the English, I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills.
I will lift up my eyes into the hills.
From whence cometh my help?
From whence cometh my help?
My help cometh from Yahweh,
My help cometh from Yahweh,
which made heaven and earth.
which made heaven and earth.
He will not suffer thy foot to be moved.
He will not suffer thy foot to be moved.
He that keepeth thee
He that keepeth thee
will not slumber.
will not slumber.
Behold,
Behold,
he that keepeth Israel
he that keepeth Israel
shall neither slumber nor sleep.
shall neither slumber nor sleep.
Yahweh is thy keeper.
Yahweh is thy keeper.
Yahweh is thy shade upon thy right hand.
Yahweh is thy shade upon thy right hand.
The sun shall not smite thee by day,
The sun shall not smite thee by day,
nor the moon by night.
nor the moon by night.
Yahweh shall preserve thee
Yahweh shall preserve thee
from all evil.
from all evil.
He shall preserve thy soul.
He shall preserve thy soul.
Yahweh shall preserve thy going out
Yahweh shall preserve thy going out
and thy coming in
and thy coming in
from this time forth
from this time forth
and even forevermore.
and even forevermore.
So be it.
So be it.
We'll say Psalms 83. Alahayim.
Alahayim.
Al-Damayalaka.
Al-Damayalaka.
Al-Thakarash.
Al-Thakarash.
Al-Thashakwat.
Al-Thashakwat.
Al. Kayahanna.
Kayahanna.
Awayabika.
Awayadyaka.
Yahama Yawan.
Yahanna Yawan.
Wayamashanayaka. Wamashanayaka.
Wamashanayaka.
Nasha'awa.
Nasha'awa.
Ra'ash.
Ra'ash.
Al-Imaka.
Al-Imaka.
Ya'ariyamwa.
Ya'ariyamwa.
Sawad.
Sawad.
Wayathaya Isatazwa.
Wayataya Aitazawa.
Altazapawanyaka.
Altazapawanyaka.
Amarwa.
Amarwa.
Lakawa.
Lakawa.
Wanakakida.
Wanakakida.
Magawiya.
Magawi.
Wala'ah.
Wala'ah.
Yasakar.
Yasakar.
Sham Yasha'al.
Sham Yasha'al.
Iwa.
Iwa.
Kaya.
Kaya.
Noah Aitazawa.
Noah Aitazawa.
La.
La.
Yakadwa.
Lakadwa.
Alyaka.
Alyaka.
Baryath.
Varyath.
Yakarathwa.
Yakarathwa.
Ahalia.
Ahalia.
Adawan.
Adawan.
Waya Shemaiah.
Wayashma'alia.
Mawa'aba.
Mawa'aba.
Wahagarian.
Wahagarian.
Gabal.
Gabal.
Wa'aimawan.
Wa'aimawan.
Wa'aimalak.
Wa'aimalak.
Halashah.
Halashah.
Amyashabia.
Amyashabia.
Tazawar.
Tazawar.
Gum Ashawar.
Gum Ashawar.
Nalawa.
Nalawa.
Imam.
Imam.
Hayawa.
Hayawa.
Zarawai.
Zarawai.
Labunya Lawat.
Labunya Lawat.
Salat.
Salat.
Ashalaham.
Aishalaham.
Kamadia.
Kamadia.
Kasaya Sara'ah.
Kasaya Sara'ah.
Kayabian.
Kayabian.
Banakal.
Banakal.
Koyashua.
Koyashwan.
Nashamadwa.
Nashamadwa.
Ba'ayan the Arwa.
Ba'ayan the Arwa.
Hayawa.
Hayawa.
Daman.
Daman.
La'adaman.
La'adaman.
Shayatamwa.
Shayatamwa.
Nadamu Slakia. Nadayamawa.
Nadayamawa.
Ka'arab.
Ka'arab.
Wakaza Abba.
Wakaza Abba.
Wakaza Bak.
Wakaza Bak.
Wakaza Zalmanai.
Wakaza Zalmanai.
Kal Nasaya Kamwa.
Kal Nasaya Kamwa.
Ashar.
Ashar.
Amarwa.
Amarwa.
Nayarasha.
Nayarasha.
Lanawa.
Lanawa.
Af. Na'awa.
Na'awa.
Alahayim.
Alahayim.
Alahaya.
Alahaya.
Shayatamwa.
Shayatamwa.
Kagagala.
Kagagala.
Kakwash.
Kakwash.
Lapanyaroka.
Lapanyaroka.
Ka'ash.
Ka'ash.
Sabaira Ya'ira.
Naba'iru Ya'iru.
Wakala Haba.
Wakala Haba.
Thalahat.
Thalahat.
Haryam.
Haryam.
Khan.
Khan.
Tharadatma.
Tharadatma.
Basa Irika.
Basa Irika.
Wabasa Wapathka.
Wabasa Wapaka.
Tabahalam.
Tabahalam.
Mala'ah.
Mala'ah.
Panyaham.
Panyaham.
Kwalawan.
Kwalawan.
Waya Bakwashua.
Waya Bakwashua.
Shamka.
Shamka.
Yahweh.
Yahweh.
Yabashua.
Yabashua.
Waya Ba'awa.
Waya Ba'awa.
Aja'ai.
Aja'ai.
Waya Kaparwa.
Waya Kaparwa.
Waya Abadwa.
Waya Abadwa.
Waya Da'aiwa.
Waya Da'aiwa.
Kaya.
Kaya. Asa.
Shamka.
Shamka.
Yahweh.
Yahweh.
Labaka.
Labaka.
Ayawan.
Ayawan.
Alka-Arataza.
Alka-Arataza.
The Wadaman.
The Wadaman.
And in the English, keep not thy silence.
Keep not thy silence.
O Yahweh.
O Yahweh.
Hold not thy peace.
Hold not thy peace.
And be not still.
And be not still.
O Yahweh.
O Yahweh.
For lo, thine enemies make a tumult.
Thine enemies make a tumult.
And they that hate thee.
And they that hate thee
have lifted up the head.
have lifted up the head.
They have taken crafty counsel. counsel.
They have taken crafty counsel
Against thy people.
against thy people
And consulted against thy hidden.
and consulted against thy hidden ones.
They have said,
Come,
come, and let us cut them off.
and let us cut them off
From being a nation.
from being a nation.
That the name of Israel.
That the name of Israel
may be no more remembered.
may be no more in remembrance.
For they have consulted together.
But they are consulted together
With one consent.
with one consent.
They are confederate against thee.
They are confederate against thee.
The tabernacles of Edom.
The tabernacles of Edom
And the Israelites.
and the Israelites
Of Moab.
of Moab
And the Hagarenes.
and the Hagarenes,
Gabal and Abner.
Gabal and Abner,
And Amalek.
and Amalek,
The Philistines.
the Philistines,
With the inhabitants of Tyre.
with the inhabitants of Tyre.
Asher also is joined with them.
Asher is also joined with them.
They have hope in the children of Lot.
They have hope in the children of Lot.
Salah.
Salah.
Do unto them.
Do unto them
As unto the Midianites.
as unto the Midianites,
As to Sisera.
as to Sisera,
As to Jabin.
as to Jabin,
At the brook of Kishon.
at the brook of Kishon,
Which perished at Endor.
which perished at Endor.
They became as dung for the
They
earth.
became as dung for the earth.
Make their nobles like Oreb.
Make their nobles like Oreb,
And like
and
Zaed.
like Zaed. Yea,
All their princes.
all their princes,
As Sabbath.
as Sabbath,
And as Zalmunna.
and as Almunna,
Who said,
who say,
let us take to ourselves
let us take to ourselves
the houses of Yahweh in possession.
the houses of Yahweh in possession.
Oh my power.
Oh, my power,
Make them like a wheel.
make them like a wheel,
As the stubble before the wind.
as the stubble before the wind,
As the fire burns the wood.
as the fire burneth the wood,
And as the flame setteth the mountains on fire.
and as the flame setting the mountains on fire.
So persecute them.
So persecute them
With thy tempest.
with thy tempest,
And make them afraid.
and make them afraid
With thy storm.
with thy storm.
Fill their faces with shame.
Fill their faces with shame,
That they may seek thy name.
that they may seek thy name.
O Yahweh.
O Yahweh.
Let them be confounded.
Let them be confounded
And troubled forever.
and troubled forever.
Yea.
Yea.
Let them be put to shame.
Let them be put to shame
And perish.
and perish,
That men may know.
that men may know
That thou.
that thou,
Whose name alone.
whose name alone
Is Yahweh.
is Yahweh,
Art the most high.
art the most high,
Over all the earth.
over all the earth.
So be it.
So be it.
We'll say the blessings. Barakatah Yahweh.
Barakatah Yahweh.
Wa Yahweh Shai.
Wa Yahweh Shai.
Wa Mayaka Allah.
Wa Mayaka Allah.
Wa Alahayim.
Wa Alahayim.
Bataza Biyah.
Bataza Biyah.
Alawat Yahanna.
Alawat Yahanna.
Ha Alawapia.
Ha Alawapia.
Ha Saranya.
Ha Saranya.
Ha Kwatas Yemen.
Ha Kwatas Yemen.
Ha Kwaya Yemen.
Ha Kwaya Yemen.
Wa Hakwathia.
Wa Hakwathia.
Yahweh.
Yahweh.
Bashir.
Bashir.
Yahweh Shai.
Yahweh Shai.
Wa Raman.
The water of man.
And in the English. Bless you, Yahweh.
Bless you, Yahweh.
And Yahweh Shai.
And Yahweh Shai.
And Michael.
And Michael.
And the angel.
And the angel.
Commanding General Yahanna.
Commanding General Yahanna.
The general.
The generals.
The captains.
The captains.
The officers.
The officers.
The troopers.
The troopers.
And the sisters.
And the sisters.
Yahweh.
Yahweh.
In the name of Yahweh Shai.
In the name of Yahweh Shai.
Thank you. So be it.
So be it.
We're going to do the curses. Blessed are you, Yahweh.
Blessed are you, Yahweh.
King of heaven and earth.
King of heaven and earth.
And all things living.
And all things living.
Yahweh.
Yahweh.
In the name of Yahweh Shai.
In the name of Yahweh Shai.
Listen to us now.
Listen to us now.
Right now.
Right now.
Send evils and curses.
Send evils and curses.
And punishment and destruction.
And punishment and destruction.
To the heathen.
To the heathen.
That speak against us.
That speak against us.
Thy prophets.
Thy prophets.
The teachers.
The teachers.
The princes.
The princes.
The priests.
The priests.
The Israelite brothers.
The Israelite brothers.
And the school.
And the school.
Send evils and curses.
Send evils and curses.
And punishment and destruction.
And punishment and destruction.
To the heathen.
To the heathen.
And shake loose.
And shake loose.
The treasure of the rich.
The treasure of the rich.
Of Israel.
Of Israel.
That refuse to give to the school.
That refuse to get to the school.
Force their riches.
Force their riches.
To enter into thy sanctuary.
To enter into thy sanctuary.
Send evils and curses.
Send evils and curses.
And punishment and destruction.
And punishment and destruction.
To the Edomites.
To the Edomites.
And the nation.
And the nation.
And their drug dealers.
And their drug dealers.
The court system.
The court system.
The prison system.
The prison system.
Planned Parenthood.
Planned Parenthood.
All the governments of our enemies.
All the governments of our enemies.
Amalek synagogues and armies.
Amalek synagogues and armies.
The Roman Catholic Church.
The Roman Catholic Church.
The Pope.
The Pope.
Islam.
Christianity.
Egyptology.
Militia.
Ku Klux Klan.
Ku Klux Klan.
Aryan Nation.
Aryan Nation.
Skinheads. Posse Comitatus. The gay movement. The lesbian movement. Spies. Workers of witchcraft.
Workers of witchcraft.
NASA space program.
NASA space program.
Army.
Navy.
Air Force.
Marines.
Wall Street. Open up the internet. And the airways. The cable access channel. And the radio channel. Convict the spirit. Of any of thy people. That seek to stop us. And bring swift destruction. To all the heathen. That stand in the way. Or try to stop us. From broadcasting your words. Throughout the planet Earth. Let loose all the plagues.
Let loose all the plagues.
Cause them to go to and fro. through the earth, and consume them. Let the plague shake the house of the thief, and the murderer. Let your house shine. Michael and Gabriel come down with the flying sauce, and punish all the heathen that come up against us. As we speak thy word, cause it to be known by all, that it is the angels that have done it. Cause it to be spread through the media, throughout the whole world. Cause them to shake at thy coming. In the name of Yahawashi. Thank you always. So be it.
And with that, I say Sar, which means to turn. Sisters, please be seated. Men of Israel, gird up thy loins, prepare to salute the Torah.
Yahweh Ba'Hashem, Yahawashi Barak Yah.
Yahweh Ba'Hashem, Yahawashi Barak Yah.
Yahweh Ba'Hashem, Yahawashi Barak Yah.
It's like it one more time. Come right. Come on. Imagine.
Barak. Yahweh Ba'Hashem, Yahawashi Barak Yah.
And you wouldn't say Barak. Just go to Barak. Come on. Let's sweat.
Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahawashi Barak Yah.
Yahawashi Barak Yah.
It's like from there. Before you come to the Torah, you come to Barak first, then you come to the Torah. So you do it again, about the shop.
Yahawashi Barak Yah.
That's right. What that is Most High in the name of Christ, the deliverer. Bless me, as you say.
Men of Israel, we're going to give one courtesy salute to the teacher. Men of Israel, Amajim Shabbat. Imajim, Barak.
Yahweh Ba'Hashem, Yahawashi Barak Yah.
Yahweh Ba'Hashem, Yahawashi Barak Thumb.
Yajmatah. Sar, sisters, please stand. Men of Israel, we're going to give one courtesy salute to the sisters. Men of Israel, Amajim Shabbat. Imajim, Barak.
Yahweh Shema Alathan Ba'Hashem Yahawashi.
Yajmatah, class dismissed.
The Lord loved us so much that in our poverty, in our hand, I would come and deliver the broken, destroyed, messed up, poor, impoverished people I'm going to save.
Young niggas ain't tough.
Hey, Shalom Israel. Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahawashi Barak Yah. Yahweh Shema Alathan Ba'Hashem Yahawashi to all the sisters, man. Listen, it's Captain 13,000, a card of a rhyme, checking in with the Israelite school of UPK under Commander Jerry Hunt. Listen, man, this year's 52nd annual Passover. Hold on. I'm gonna say it one more time. This year's 52nd annual Passover under Commander YAHANNA under the I.S.U.P.K. Couldn't do it last year. Y'all already know the Lord had his foot on our oppressor's neck.
Here in New York City, there are roughly 1,000 cases a day. Those are numbers they haven't seen since May.
Can't do it in New York this year because the Lord still got his foot on our oppressor's neck.
New York, the center of the outbreak this spring, is now teetering on another deadly explosion of the virus.
But listen to me good. This year, 52nd annual Passover, April 24th, 2021. You understand? It's going to be in H-Town, baby.
It's going to be at the B&H Ranch, 14149 Players Street, Houston, Texas.
Y'all know what we do. Y'all know what we came to do.
2021 I.S.U.P.K. 52nd annual Passover. All the generals gonna be there. All the heavy hitters gonna be there. The daughters of Zion gonna step out with their beautiful long dresses, you understand? Strong on deck. That One West style music on deck. 52nd annual Passover.
B&H Ranch, 14149 Players Street, Houston, Texas.
Get with it to get lost, man.
got it out the mud, straight up out the base. The world done made me crazy. The world done turned crazy.
You dealing with the men of war. We at war. I sided with the Lord, of course, on one accord. We ain't never stopping now. You running now. All my niggas go to ground. We go.
Shalom. YAHANNA, YAHUSHA, Yahweh Shemal Ladon Bashim, YAHUSHA to the sisters. I'm President Captain TITHES with the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, telling you to come out to the 52nd annual Passover under Commanding General YAHANNA. Yeah, man, it's going to be at the ranch, man, the BH Ranch. And it's going to be a glorious event. April 24th, come to Houston, Texas, where we're going to serve the Lord the way He's supposed to be served. You understand? We're going to celebrate the destruction of our enemy in the BH Ranch, and it's going to be a glorious event. Make sure you come out, man. It's going to be a $200 fee to get in, but let me tell you something. You're going to enjoy yourself. This is going to be the best event you've ever been to in your life. So I'm going to tell you, man, 1414 9 Player Street, come out, man, and enjoy the brotherhood and sisterhood under Christ. With that, shalom.